What's going on, guys? Nobrecious here. Today we have a new type of episode. I will try doing a live commentary of a game. I want to do a commentary after each turn and after deployment. I will try to include my predictions. Today we will see a game between Ogre Khans and Vermin Swarms. We have two very good players playing in, both from my club. Both of those armies are new to them, so I guess we will see some experimenting and some unusual stuff. Let's move to the list level. So the ogres are a bit more standard, I would say, because you have a big block of bruisers, then some bombardiers, you have one hunter, some monsters, and shamanism. And the rats are a bit more unusual, since you don't see a demon, you don't see a pendulum, which are basically in every list now, but you see much more defensive build, with basically no big targets. The only real targets in the list are dreadmills. Other than that, the list is focused on a bit of shooting and CR based, so you have the two big blocks of ratatams that are supported by the one upgradable general, by meat grinder, by some machinists that can do decent damage, and then you have the assassin. This is a matchup of two very balanced lists facing each other, so I would say that this is highly dependent on the scenario, but in general I would say that it should be around the draw. Maybe the matchup favors the rats a bit, so my initial guess would be that the rats should win around 12-8, and we will see how the predictions will change during the game. So I guess see you after the deployment. So we've reached the end of deployment. I would like to point out a few things. First of all, the hunter that vanguarded, even though the footpaths cannot exit his line of sight, it is not really a problem, because they easily can be positioned on something like 8 inches from him. And then if he decides to charge, they can just flee, and he will just waste a turn, so he won't be able to charge anyways. The second thing is that the doom wheels on the right are positioned such that the bombardiers will have a soft cover to the left one and the hard cover to the right one, and both doom wheels can shot at the cannon. So the cannon positioning was interesting, because either you force your opponent to put the doom wheels there, or they have to be hidden behind the hill somewhere, which renders them pretty much useless for the rest of the game. I think that the giant on the left could have been positioned a bit more to the center, and I would say that the bombardiers could have been positioned a bit more forward, especially because I would rather take shots from the doom wheel on 6s to the bombardiers than on 4s to the cannon. I would say that it might be very difficult for the rats to win this scenario, and winning this scenario seems much more possible for the ogres. One more thing that I would like to point out is that the weapon teams are positioned kind of strange. The rotary gun could have been positioned on the right side of the Ratatam's unit, so that if the giant rats move forward, the rotary gun can both hide behind them and be within 3 inches of Ratatams. In general, I would say that the deployment is kind of as expected, and the first rat turn won't be as good as it could have been if ogres started, because at some point the ogres player decided to drop all and let the rat player start. I would say that my expectations don't change much, but I would expect the first 2 turns to be decisive here. A few things that will matter is whether the doom wheels can kill the cannon, and how many bombardiers will die from all the other types of shooting, and vice versa. What can ogres do in their magic and shooting phase, and if they can kill one of the doom wheels. So let's see how the turn 1 for the rats finished. Okay, so we finished turn 1 from the rats. Cannon died, and the gutters managed to inflict 1 wound to the giant. Unfortunately, magic was pretty ineffective and did only 1 wound to bombardiers. Several things that I would like to point out is that the weapon teams are a bit too hidden. They should have moved more forward, another 5 inches, because I think that bombardiers will still want to shoot at the dreadmills. And now I think it is possible for the ogre player to still be out of range from the weapon teams. The second thing is that the footpaths on the left are over 17 from the hunter, and while this is not bad, I would rather have them to be closer, but being able to shoot at the hunter with 10 shots. It would be quite possible to do 1 wound to the dog or even kill the dog, and then if the hunter decided to charge, they could have even fled. And with the current positioning, if they decide to flee, it's highly likely that they will be off the board. With a bit different positioning and a bit better angle, they could have landed in the board pretty much every time, and within 18 inches from the general. So I think that are the things that could have been done better by the Rats player. And let's move to the Ogre turn. We're back at bottom of 1. So shooting and magic were highly inefficient. Only the Totemic Beast got summoned. Killed 4 of the running gutters. So we're back at the bottom of 1. First mistake I would like to point out is after Giant charged on the gutters, this was a charge on a 10, the Vermiswarm player decided to flee because the Giant would have had an overrun on a 6 into the Doom Wheel. But I think this was uncalled for, because with the stand and shoot and potential gutter attacks, the Doom Wheel would be able probably to handle the Giant even if he made the charge on 10. And if he just decided to hold and the Giant didn't make the charge, this was a free stand and shoot. Thanks to that mistake, the Ogre player was able to summon the Totemic Summon and kill 4 of the gutters. So basically they will be unable to rally. As I predicted, all the other Ogre units are over 23 inches from both the weapon teams, so they will be useless in this turn. Unfortunately, no other shooting and magic were effective, so both Doom Wheels are untouched. I think Scraplings could have went a bit more forward, since I wouldn't be afraid of the weapon team shooting into Scraplings. I would generally say that the initiative here is in the Vermin player's hands, so that's definitely going for him. The Totemic Beast is also a bit misplaced, since our player wanted both to be able to use Breath Weapon and have an 8-inch charge to the Catapult crew. He also managed to put his unit into the weapon team range. The weapon teams will be able to shoot. So I think that this turn was pretty bad generally for Ogres, so maybe predictions might change a bit. But I think that we have yet the more important turns to come. Okay, so we are at the end of the Vermiswarm's turn 2. And it went pretty downhill for the Ogres, since the green marker marks the Comet, and also one of the Bombardiers died from the magic. Doom Wheels didn't do nothing to the Giant, but the Cannon managed to hit again and do another 3 wounds. Fortunately, the Beast survived the hits from weapon teams, but generally I would say that Ogres are in a pretty bad spot now. Additionally, the Mammoth Hunter on the left cannot see the footpads. I would say that now it really depends on whether the Ogre units want to try for the longer charges. The main block has charges on 12, and the Orok has charges on 11. So that's really now the question, whether the main block gets the charge. I would say that he needs to at least try the charge on the 12, because if he doesn't go for it, he would still not move very differently from his position now. So I would say that definitely the charge on the 12 first into the footpads to force the flee, and then into the main block or the block on the left is a good choice. I would also try the Orok, because I don't think that the Orok can get out of the line of sight of the Ratatan's block on the left. And we'll see if the shooting can be at least a bit more effective in this turn. But if he doesn't make any of the charges and the shooting is inefficient, especially if the Comet falls down, then it might be really hard for him to get back into the game. Okay, so we are at bottom of turn 2. The Doom Wheel finally got first 2 wounds. The Comet didn't fall, which is actually pretty important, because if the Comet fell, then both Doom Wheels could have charged the 5 Bombardiers on the right. The 3 wounds on Cannon are nice, but I think that the Dog is given out for free. If I were the Rat player, I would just back off with everything. Try to kill both Totemic Beasts now. Try to kill the Dog and put some more wounds on the Bombardiers. The Cannon doesn't have any targets anymore, but if magic is successful enough, then it might be able to shoot at the BSB, which could be very devastating. If the Catapult manages to hit the Bruiser, that also would be nice. So this is really dependent on how magic and shooting goes. I think that the wounded Doom Wheel should hide in the forest and try to kill the remaining beast. 2 of the weapon teams and the 9 footpads should try to kill the other Totemic Beast, because now on close range this shouldn't be a problem. Maybe the magic could also help putting some wounds on the Orok with either number 1 from Thaumaturgy or number 6. With 3 Veil tokens stored, this magic phase can be huge. And I think that with the situation on board, the Vermiswarm player is pretty much ahead, so he shouldn't rush. Comet, if the Comet manages to fall down this turn, it would be really good for him, and it might seriously damage both Bombardier units. The only issue I see for him is that the Doom Wheels are kind of in a weird spot, because they don't have that many targets to shoot at. So they can either go to try to kill the Giant or try to go more to the center. and I would rather say that going to the center is a better way, because they can help much more in the later phases of the game. Okay, so at this point, the commentary will no longer be ongoing, since Marek had to go to eat, and I started playing for him. Didn't have time to record in the meanwhile. After his turn, not so many things happened, but fortunately for him, the comet fell down and killed some bombardiers. It was pretty fortunate because he misplaced his wizard into the footpaths unit, so in Ogre's turn, it was likely that the bombardiers in full strength will be able to kill his wizard. With the limited units, it is no longer possible pretty much. Next turn of Ogre's, the second beast managed to kill the cannon. Unfortunately for the Ogre player, both Rokorok and Giant failed the charge into the left Ratatar's unit. But I think that this charge was a mistake, since the charges were like 50% on both. So it was only 25% for him to make both charges in. And if he made the charge only with the giant would probably die. And if he made the charge only with Orok, the Orok would have likely died in this or next turn. So I consider this a bit of a misplay. Because of the failed charge, he had to position his hunter a bit back, just to prevent the unit from charging the giant. I also would say that probably the better solution would be to move the hunter aggressively and then just flee with the giant if the rats player decides to charge. And here comes the biggest misplay of the game. I think he was stuck between his mindset of shooting the wizard and not shooting the wizard, so he went with his bodies a bit front. Thanks to that, the Doom Wheels got a pretty good charges. As you can see, the Doom Wheels are still pretty healthy, and that's basically what happened in the next turn. The Doom Wheel on the right, 20 giant rats, and the Doom Wheel on the left decided to charge the BSB unit. Both Doom Wheels made it in, but the Doom Wheel on the left failed 2 dangerous terrain tests out of 4, so died. Nevertheless, as you can see here, the unit was broken. The Doom Wheel could park safely in the Bombardiers unit. And even though the giant rats failed the terror test and died in the consequence, I think this was a turning point in the game. Additionally, the shooting turn went pretty good, and the Rokorok got 5 wounds. So this starts to look pretty grim for the Ogres. And then the Ogre player made another pretty weird move. He decided to go for a long charge with his giant on the footpaths on the left. The charge was in on a 9. It could have been a game breaker, but it didn't seem like this. He had to basically sacrifice his Orok. This was the first turn where the Mammoth Hunter basically came into play. I think what he could have done is back off and try to draw the scenario. Maybe push a bit more with the bruisers on the right to pretend that he can try to contest the scenario on the right as well. So I think the only real way for him to score any points was to get some long charges in or deny the rats player to win the scenario. And unfortunately at his point everything crumbled because the Doom Wheel managed to finish off the giant on the right. The Bombardiers on the right are pretty much dead. Both breath weapons from Mechanist plus the lot of shooting managed to kill the giant together with -1 toughness. Assassin managed to kill Rokorok. So at this point we just decided that the weapon team will die from either the beast or 5d6 strength 1 in the next 2 turns. The Bombardiers on the right will die and all the other units will survive. The rat player will claim the scenario. In the end, it finished in a 3-17 score. I think even though the Bombardiers shooting was much more ineffective than it could have been, the misplay with positioning of the BSB changed the flow of the game and allowed the Vermiswamp player to break through the lines and get both Bombardier units, get the BSB, and get all the initiative he needed. As I said at the beginning, and as you could have seen, the Vermiswamp player had the initiative through the whole game. And even if the shooting from Bombardiers were better and Doom Wheels would die much sooner, I think still it would be an uphill battle for the Ogres, and I would predict that the right point would go to the Vermiswamp player, the left point could go to Ogre player, especially because Ogre player was playing second. Then the score would be around 12-8. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed commentating like this until I had to step in. And I think I will try to repeat those videos more often, maybe with some random games, not really the scheduled ones. And see you in the next video. Cheers!